Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a belated one, but I'm back all the same. It's a belated deep dive. On Saturday, which was approximately, well, it feels like it was weeks ago, but it was about 4 days ago, Bromley recorded their third win in a victory, their sixth game unbeaten, a 4-1 victory against, who did we even beat? Look at this, I'm trying to remember. 4-1 victory. Victory against Maidenhead United. That's how United was a while ago. I took some time to remember who it was, but 4-1 victory against Maidenhead United, and not one to be sniffed at. To be fair, in the run up to that game, yes, Bromley were unbeaten in 5, but it must be remembered that Maidenhead as well were unbeaten in 4 and hadn't actually let in a goal in 4 games. They'd won 1-0 and then 3 0-0 draws in a row. And I think the reason why I state that is sometimes people, I think the more negative elements of the Bromley fan base will try to always be like, sometimes when there's a comfortable Bromley victory, will be like, yeah, but this team was poor. But I think we have to, and whether they were or whether they weren't, we have to look at the context going into the game. Few people would have called a 4-1 drubbing of Maidenhead because of the form going into the game from both teams. So I think we have to recognise that it was a victory that Bromley deserved. It was a victory that they were fully worth over the course of the 90 minutes. And like we've done with every other game this season, Colin Head is back again to deep dive into the game and have a look at the key talking points and look ahead, of course, to the next game, which is Oldham Athletic on Saturday. So without any further ado, let me bring Colin back onto the show.
Oh, yeah. You're right.
How you doing, Colin?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks, mate. Yeah, all good.
I can see the glow that you've got. That's the glow of someone who's like, yeah, my team's winning. There's nothing to be
pressure's
concerned
off.
about. it literally feels, I mean, it was a month ago when we would have been talking after maybe the Barnet game or whichever game it was, saying, well, you know what? And actually, this is the perfect place to start. Where we would have been talking and saying, you know what? It feels like Bromley is still in pre-season at the beginning of the season. It was your words. Those were your exact words.
Yeah, they were my words. Yeah.
It feels like they're still in pre-season. It feels like until we get a full quota of players back, until there's still a few additions, which you both kind of knew it was going to happen, that you couldn't really assess where the team was at or where the general strength of the squad until we reached such a point. And I think I said to you on Saturday when I saw you at the game, I said, I think I said to you, do you remember what you said? And we had a chat about it, and I said, we're exactly where you said we would be if we actually started the season much later than everyone else once everybody was back fit. Would you think that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. We got players back. We look a lot more cohesive now. You know, the addition of Woods, as I'm sure we'll discuss later, in front of the back five has made such a difference. But yeah, we're where we should have been on the first day of the season, but we've had to play 3 games behind maybe, but we're definitely where we should be now. Absolutely. We look like the team that me and you both said we potentially would be if, once everything had bedded in, and it has now.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. So before anyone starts to criticize in the comments below, I'm not going to try and get ahead of myself and be like, you see, this is the team that I've predicted will finish in the playoffs. Granted, I've predicted will finish 7th. But what I would say is where we have started to see over the 6 games to the point of the 4-1 victory on Saturday, signs of the team over the last 3 seasons that has proved so difficult to beat. Doesn't mean that we'll always play well. Doesn't mean we'll always be at our best, but you're going to have to try to you can't just turn up, generally speak. When Bromley have their full court of players and when everything is where it should be, generally speaking, you can't just turn up and turn Bromley over. We're gonna make it very difficult. And you and I have been watching this team now in the National League for the last 7 seasons that we've been in it. And if there's one thing that is the kind of fundamentals of surviving in the National League, and then first and foremost surviving and then trying to kick on, is you've got to make yourself hard to beat. You've got to be prepared to do the ugly stuff. You've got to be prepared to play percentages football and win second balls and headers and volleys away. And only once you've done all that stuff do you earn the right to play good football.
That's exactly it. You've got to earn the right to play. Absolutely. I can't think of many times since 2015 where we've rolled over. There's not many at all. We've always like made you got to work to beat us, and we've got that again now. We've got that identity again, which is great.
Now, interestingly, going into this game, Andy Woodman had signed 4 players, right? So Ryan Jones from Bristol Rovers, who is subsequently disclosed has, I think he said, broken his arm or something
Broke
like
his
that. So
arm,
we don't know
yeah.
how long he'll be out for. Lewis, I want to say it's Lewis Lane, but I can't remember what his surname is. But from Preston,
Lewis Lee,
and Lee, that's it, Lewis
yeah,
Lee from Preston, and then Alex Kirk and Kiddo Taylor Hart from Arsenal. Now, obviously, there was a lot of kind of hype about the Arsenal signings, and those 2 are very talented players. And at the fans forum yesterday that I went to, Andy Woodman made a pertinent point. He was like, I don't think Bromley fans will have seen such a talented set of youngsters come from such a big club in the context of Arsenal. So it's a major coup to get players of that ability that people are aware of, right? Okay, cool. But none of them started on Saturday, right? And Andy Woodman admitted in the post match to me that they're not ready. As far as he's concerned, fitness wise, they're not at the levels that they need to be to come into the team firing on all cylinders. But that notwithstanding, where do you stand on that kind of issue of keeping the same team and trusting the team that has effectively got him now to prior to the game to 5 games unbeaten and now 6 games unbeaten?
yeah. If they're all fit and available, I think you've got to go pretty much with the same personnel and the same shape because it would be harsh to drop anybody out of the side at the moment. We've picked up some really good. Winning away at Altrincham is a really good result. And beating Maidenhead, who are so hard. Most teams really struggle to beat them. To put 4 past them is pretty remarkable, really. Especially when for the first 15 minutes, I thought, oh my word, they're going to give us the run
Mm,
around here. And then we had the water break, and it was literally like a timeout for us because
mm.
it was like, and he obviously said something clicked, and within 3 minutes of the water break, we're 1-0 up, and never really looked in trouble after that. And in many ways, we took our foot off the gas after the 4th goal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and so
even then, with the foot off the gas, I think there was I counted at least 2 that I would have considered, yeah, we should have scored there. And I
yeah,
think
late
that's
on,
only,
yeah,
yeah, and I think that's only because the game was already wrapped up that we weren't completely clinical, if that
yeah,
makes sense. But if that game had finished 5-1, maybe even 6, I'm not even sure if Maidenhead could have complained, given
no,
the kind of level of like it, we played with we kept them at arm's length in the second
it,
half. If you see what I mean, games won,
it
you're at arm's length
yeah.
here.
I thought it was a real shame that we had the injuries that we had because then he was forced into substitutions where I would have liked to seen Peppel and Miller come on with
Mm,
20 and give them a real headache, and really like step it up. But in the end, we had to make the change we had to make because of injuries. So, it wasn't quite. But we could have even stepped it up a notch later on
yeah.
if we'd have had the opportunity to make those subs.
And speaking of injuries, one of those injuries on the 67th minute was Sam Woods, who Andy Woodman said had
Yeah,
turned his ankle, and we'll have to see if he's ready for Oldham on Saturday. We don't know if it's minor enough that the turnaround and rest, the ice and recovery, whatever, is enough for him to play again. But what a revelation he's been in
yeah,
front of the
absolutely.
defence. And I had a
Yeah,
conversation with a fellow fan where, and I say this with real respect to Sam, Sam is not, in my mind, technically gifted, right? If you put Billy Bingham versus Sam Woods, Billy Bingham is significantly more technically gifted than Sam Woods, right? But Sam Woods sometimes, and I feel like this is what's happened with Sam Woods, it's the player that fits the system more
yeah.
than the better player, right? And Sam Woods, I said it to the fan I was talking to, and if he's listening to this, he knows what I'm talking about. I said to him, and he said to me, in fairness, that Sam Woods' greatest attributes is he makes everybody else look better. Do you get
Absolutely.
where I'm coming
Yeah,
from?
yeah. Every team needs that guy, you know. Yeah. The guy that sits in front of the defence and does all the dirty stuff and says, go on, you take the ball now and you do something with it.
Yeah.
It's what we really, really needed. It's turned out to be a really good signing.
100%. And I think what impressed me most, I think, in his overall performance on Saturday, and I saw somebody criticize the fact that the non-league paper said that he was man of the match. Well, that's my fault, people, because I was the one who I was the one who said it. But the reason why I said it is if you go back and watch the goals, Sam Woods was involved in all of the first 3 goals. So
Yeah,
it was his cross that Josh Pashley headed back for Michael Cheek to score. The second one, it was his dink again that allowed Whiteley to dink on to head on to Cheek to score again, and then it was his
yeah,
goal for the third one.
yeah,
So my argument was defensively, he makes our team sound. On Saturday, he showed that he had some kind of offensive characteristics which can make him a problem. Obviously, that's not his role, but that can make him a problem going further forward. So I thought he deserved it for his overall contribution. I think sometimes, and that's not to take it away from Cheeky. Obviously, Cheeky did what Cheeky does, but sometimes it's too easy to look at the striker and go, well, they scored 2 goals, so it's them. And I just thought that recognizing Sam's kind of contribution all over the pitch, that he was the one that kind of deserved the plaudits.
yeah. He would have got my vote as well. If obviously I'd do a report as well. But we don't have the man of the match on the one that I do, but I would have named him as well. Actually, I thought he was excellent. Like you say, creativity defensively, and then also to pop up and be in the 6-yard box and really get hold of that as well. Great finish.
And one thing I like about Woodman that he possibly doesn't get the plaudits for is that he's very much a believer in if you get hold of a shirt and you're performing well enough, you're keeping that shirt, irrespective
Yeah,
of if there's somebody on paper better than you. If your performances demand that you keep so technically, right? So he's got in this Lewis Lee guy, he's got in Ryan Jones. There's a technical argument to say that when they're up to speed, well, I don't know, maybe Sam Woods comes out, but actually, if Sam Woods is playing well, he won't. Woodman's the type of person who won't drop someone. And the reason why I
yeah,
make this point, Cole, is Byron Webster. Now, I sense that the fan base is split a bit on Byron. I think there's certainly an element of the fan base that are like, he's 36 years old. He slowly needs to be phased out. And I hear that. I hear that argument. But he's actually playing well in my mind. And
yeah,
when I say well, part of that well is the importance of being a leader and marshalling the defense and giving instruction and giving it structure and order. And I don't think that can be understated in terms of the need of that, given the form we were in before he came into the side and the fact that we needed to tighten up. Yes, of course, he lacks pace now and but I don't. I said it on the video I did about the new signings. He deserves his place until such point that he loses form. Is my
yeah.
argument.
I would agree. Yeah, and I'll admit, at the end of last season, when he came out of the team because of injury, and then we went on that run and got in the playoffs, I thought that's got to be him done now.
Mm.
Honestly, I thought he'll be coaching next year with the occasional performance, but you can't drop him on current performance. And if you're playing well, carry on doing it. There isn't anything there in the last few games where you say, "Oh yeah, he's the weak link." It's just not. He's come back again, probably stronger than he was at the end of last season.
Now that's my argument. That's the point I think I'm trying to make. He actually looks better than like when he was out at the end of last season. I was like, yeah, bro, it's not your time anymore. Like
Yeah,
you're out because Dedge is better than you and Omar is better than you and Reynolds can't be dropped. But now I'm looking at him going, well, actually, you're making it very hard for anyone to come and take your spot. And good.
yeah,
That's how it should
yeah,
be.
yeah.
That's how it
Brilliant.
should
Yeah,
be. There's been a lot written about. If everyone's wondering what am I doing today, we're going through some talking points, people. So, but there's been a lot written about Michael Cheek. I didn't watch the TV. Obviously, I was at the game, so I didn't watch the TV highlights. I saw an interview today where he was praised about being the National League's record goal scorer, and Woodman did an interview saying he wouldn't swap him for the world. And now, Cole, you've been going Bromley longer than me, but we've certainly both been going a long time. And I think I put up a tweet on the Sunday or on the weekend or whatever,
Yeah,
just talking about how we've been blessed, certainly. And you go back before me, so you can throw in some other names, but we've been blessed in our time at Bromley and I'm looking from the last 15 to 20 years, from going from the Ryman 1 South all the way up to where we are now. We've been blessed with always having popular number nines, right?
yeah,
Now,
absolutely.
admittedly, I left some names out. I just kind of picked some key figureheads, right? But now I'll say all the names. So when I first started going, Wordsworth, for all of
Yeah,
his for all of his antics,
yeah,
D Wordsworth. Tompkins was in. I mean, people fell out, but then came to appreciate in the latter run under George Wakeling when
most
we got
definitely.
promoted, right, alongside Wade Falana. Adolfo Moko under Stuart McIntyre.
Unbelievable player.
Um, when Goldberg came in, do you know what? I missed out the Warren McBean years. I didn't even mention Warren
I
McBean,
think, yeah,
right?
we need to talk about Warren whenever we can because people can't forget just how good he was in a
Mm,
very average team.
yeah,
And you were looking at 20 goals minimum from someone who was feeding off scraps a lot of the time.
yeah.
Just unbelievably talented striker. His eye for goal was, in
If
a
Warren
better team. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. If he had
Yeah,
been
yeah,
blessed with playing in a better Bromley team, he probably would have had a season in, like, he would have been back in the National League and
yeah,
so on
yeah,
and so forth.
definitely.
As it was, his goals made sure we just didn't ever end in relegation problems.
Yeah,
Is really what that was about. So you had Warren McBean, Moses Emmanuel,
yeah,
um, Bradley Goldberg for the pre-promotion season, and obviously when he came back again, bypassed Nick McDonnell, of course.
yeah.
And now we've come, and I've missed some people out, but I'm talking about like the top
The top
strikers.
nines. Yeah,
Um, and now, of course, we're at Michael Cheek. Now, obviously, given the level we're at, Cheek is the best, right? Just in terms of the level we're at, but
yeah,
pound for
absolutely.
pound, if it's possible, over all the years that you've seen, what's your top three? Even if you've got Cheek at number one, what's your top
Yeah,
three pound for
wow.
pound when you think about Bromley strikers?
That's such a because I did a list after I read your tweet. I did my own list because I thought I could go back a little bit further, and I would, and yeah, Adolf had to be in there. But top three, Cheek has to be number one because we're playing at our highest level, and the guy's averaging 20 a season
Mm,
in the fifth tier of football, and it's you're guaranteed he's going to score. So yeah, he would be number one. I would probably go back to when I was a kid and we had a striker called Butch Dunn who got 48 goals in one season. The guy was just a machine. Um, and again, he was in not a particularly great side at times, but was just absolutely lethal in front of goal. He was fantastic with his head, brilliant with his feet. And like, anybody can put 48 in a season. He's doing a decent job. And then but in the middle of those two, it's so hard to choose because you definitely Adolf and Moko would be up there again for the team that he was playing in. And the
mm.
amount of times that we were bringing on someone who was like 18, 19 years old and going, yeah, go and save the game for us. You remember games where he's come on and thought, wow, we've actually got a chance now.
Yeah.
And he'd grab us a point, like Epsom and you on your birthday years ago. And he got an equaliser in the last couple of minutes. He thought, oh, he's got us out of jail again. Um, but I think actually, you know what, top three for quality, Butch Dunn from the 80s, Michael Cheek now, but I would actually go for Moses because Moses was, and he's still doing it, still
Yes.
doing it. Just a natural goal scorer, just so good.
And do you know what? I wish I'd done the list again that I put up, because I was just talking off the top of my head, and I felt really bad when people replied and was like, Mash, what about Warren McBean? What about Moses Emmanuel? And I was like, why didn't I think about this before I started writing, right? People must remember that when we first got promoted to the National League, Moses banged, what was it, 18? He banged, was it
Yeah,
18 that season when it was the Flair gang? He,
yeah,
to the point where we
yeah,
all thought he was leaving in January because of how many goals he had banged in
yeah,
in our first season in the National League. So people mustn't get it twisted. Moses Emmanuel was a National League striker. Yes, he played
yeah,
in our promotion side out of National League South, but that first season in the National League, he was scoring all kinds of goals. So I say that not to kind of not like give credit to Cheek, but we have had another National League goal scorer, but maybe some air of our fan base don't remember it. Because
sure.
Cheek has been
Sure.
doing what he's
Yeah.
been doing now for the last 4 years. So it can be easy for some to forget that we had Moses Emmanuel at one point doing in a season what Cheek regularly does for us.
Yeah. And I think Nick McDonald, we just have to mention because, wow, and you were talking about the scorers of important goals, which is what Cheek is as well.
Mm.
No more important than the trophy final, but
yeah,
it's those players that have the ice in their veins in the key situation and find that goal that gets you that 1-0 win against Wimbledon in the playoffs, or that 1-0 win against Wrexham in the final.
Yeah. And actually, before we move on, I do just want to stress to people that yes, it was a lower level, but your number 9 doesn't get any better than scoring the winner in a playoff semi-final, scoring the goal in the playoff final, scoring a penalty in the playoff final. Nick McDonald was literally a number 9. I will score when it matters most.
Absolutely.
in the game. And Cheek is that at a higher level of football. So
yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
So for those of you who wanted a bit of a history kind of trip down memory lane from Bromley, we just gave you a little piece there. Cole's got that for days if needs be. So let me know in the comments below if you want us to go down memory lane.
Yeah, we can do that.
but looking ahead, Cole. Oldham Athletic come to the lane on Saturday, and Oldham have spent tons and tons of money and. Possibly predictably, they've struggled. They were ropey last season, and it looked like David Unsworth may or may not possibly get removed last season. They've entrusted him with loads of money, brought in players like James Norwood. They've played 8 games and won 1 this season. Now, in classic Bromley fashion, we're supposed to be the ones that kick their season off, but we could also be the ones that force them to sack David Unsworth.
We could put him under a lot of pressure on Saturday.
If after Saturday it reads 9 games, 1 win, and they plummet from 17th down to, 19th or 20th, it may force the chairman into a decision, because at this level of football, you can't spend what I call Notts County money or Chesterfield money and be languishing in 19th, 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th for too long, because there's only 2 promotion spots. You can't give, I think you said this a while ago, can't give teams head starts because it's virtually impossible to claw it back. That notwithstanding, what result would you take on Saturday versus what result you think we'll get on Saturday?
I find myself pinching myself, but I actually think I expect us to win on Saturday. And I've not been in that position. I don't do that. I don't throw around, oh yeah, we're definitely going to win today. But we go into a game against Oldham, and if you've been around football for a while, that's a ex-Premier League team. And we're going into a game against them, and I would say we're favourites, which is crazy.
I'm glad you said it first. And not me. But I'll be honest, that I think we're No. On paper, we're not.
Yeah.
In reality, I think we might be.
Yeah.
And I don't get me wrong, I wouldn't say no to a point.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say no. Like if it ended 1-1 or something, I'd be like, oh, well, fair, let's move on. But I think we can win it.
Yeah, it's great.
Put it this way, I'd be disappointed if we lost. Put it that way.
5 o'clock Saturday, if we're unbeaten in 7, no complaints, none whatsoever. But I do genuinely think that we could beat them. Going to their thinking, if everybody's fit, obviously that means Pasley isn't injured. That means Woods isn't injured. If you got your full strength team available, and we play to the same standard that we played last Saturday against Maidenhead, it's there. The opportunity is there.
I mean, I struggle to disagree with that. If for some reason this finds Oldham fans and you disagree, by all means, get in the comments below. Bromley fans, if you disagree, get in the comments below. But don't take what Colin and I are saying for bravado, and don't take that to mean that we're demanding the team wins. I'd like to think that this is more a sober reflection and looking over the piece of form over the last however many games and looking at how we've been playing and looking at what Oldham are doing, I think that's a fair enough assessment. But I don't think either one of us, say we did lose, I'm not going to throw my toys out the pram. It'll be disappointing. But I'm not going to throw my toys out the pram. It is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Listen, Cole, last point before we wrap this one up. Just because people may say, well, how come you haven't touched on other people, etc., etc. Josh Passley, you just mentioned Josh Passley, actually. And I'm going to mention Topoloy at the same time, because we'll go through a whole season probably never really mentioning the win-backs because they won't get much plaudits. Even if they have good games, they're unlikely to get many plaudits because we'll be looking at a Cheat, we'll be looking at a Louis, we'll be looking at a Corey, we'll be looking at a Crowhouse, Woods. But the win-backs kind of, it's weird because they just do their job.
Yeah, yeah.
And no one's really going to focus on them because Bez started slowly, and I was critical of him. I thought he'd started the season slow. I think he looked undercooked. Passley obviously was suspended, so he came in looking a bit undercooked and then got sent off. But on Saturday, I was watching them both go in. You're just solid. Like, we don't need to worry about you two because you're both good backwards and forwards. You won't necessarily win us the game because you're in positions that are unlikely to win us the game. But in being so solid, your key parts of the cogs. So I just wanted to kind of touch on them because I don't think people notice them as much.
I think Passley's distribution is fantastic. His delivery, and we missed that last year because we didn't always have someone that was going to deliver the ball once they'd beaten the player. But his delivery is superb. I would like to see him on free kicks. I would like to see him on corners. I think his delivery is superb. You know, and I've prior to this season, I've not seen many players that Andy's brought in from non-league that I thought have made a huge difference, with the exception of Reynolds. But this guy, and the Coley as well, they are good signings from other non-league clubs, you know. And Passley's been really good, and he's noticeable when he's not around. So just needs to hopefully not get sent off again, you know.
Yes, 100%. And just to touch on Cole's point there, that's not to say that that's not to say that Kellen and or Harry didn't have their attributes, but I think, and you can see why Andy was so keen to bring Josh in, because I agree with Cole. It's the instant delivery, no dilly dallying. No, let me chop back and beat the man again, or chop back onto another foot. It's right. Have I got space? Let me whip it in. And if you've got someone like Cheek in the middle, whip it in. because you know that he's sniffing around the place looking for something. So I have to agree with you on that point.
Cool, yeah. And Bez is just like you say, getting stronger every game, which is great. It's a young man, but I think we forget sometimes. I think it was a good tweet you put out Saturday about the ages of the team. It's quite easy to forget how young they are until you actually see them walk past you and you think, damn, they're really young still, and they're doing an incredible job.
So sometimes when I see these players, I have to remember that I'm basically their uncle.
Yeah.
It's a depressing thought, but it's also the reality.
I remember saying I said to my son last year, like, one of those players out there is only 4 years older than you. It's just ridiculous.
One day I'm gonna have to write an article about the relationship we have with players, because it is a weird relationship of I'm looking up to you, but you should be looking up to me. But I wonder one day I'll unpick that. But listen, Cole, once again, the 30 minutes have flown by. Thank you so much for coming on the deep dive. Ladies and gents who've been watching along on the deep dive. A couple of you yesterday came up to me at the fans forum and said you're avid viewers of the deep dive. So thank you very much for that. It's good to see that people are watching it. Like the video, share, subscribe. You know the jazz by now. Comment below if you've got something to say. Make sure you go and read the Substack as well, because there is content in the Substack. Look at the description below to find all the links that you need to see. And thank you as ever, and tune in. I don't know when we'll do it after Oldham, but there will be something, and I definitely want to get an Oldham fan on after that, because if we beat them, I don't think they'll be very happy. So look out for the one. Look out for the one after the Oldham game. Cole, thank you so much, and we'll catch
Pleasure.
up
Cheers,
again
mate.
soon.